The living room was adorned with colorful streamers and a vibrant banner that read, "Happy Birthday, Kimberly." The scent of vanilla from the birthday cake wafted through the air, mingling with the faint aroma of coffee brewing in the kitchen. My heart raced with excitement, but an undercurrent of unease tugged at my thoughts. As I glanced around, I could see my family gathered near the table, their faces a mix of forced smiles and unspoken tensions. The laughter felt hollow, an echo of joy that masked the simmering conflicts beneath the surface. "Make a wish, Kim," my younger brother Jake urged, his voice bright yet strained as he leaned forward with anticipation. I closed my eyes, inhaling deeply, trying to drown out the swirling doubts that clouded my mind. What did I truly wish for? A perfect birthday? Or perhaps a family that could celebrate without the weight of resentment hanging in the air? As I blew out the candles, a cheer erupted from the gathered crowd, but it was quickly followed by an awkward silence. My son Ethan looked at me with wide eyes, his expression shifting from excitement to confusion. "Mom, I don't want to be here. I can't pretend everything is okay anymore." His words sliced through the festive atmosphere like a knife, leaving a heavy silence in their wake. The joy of the moment dissipated, replaced by a palpable tension. I felt my cheeks flush as I exchanged glances with my mother, Laura, whose face had turned a deep shade of crimson. The laughter around us faded, replaced by a collective intake of breath. I wanted to scream, to shake my son and tell him to be quiet, but instead I stood frozen, grappling with the reality that my birthday celebration had just unraveled before my eyes. In that moment, I realized that this birthday was more than just a celebration. It was the beginning of a confrontation that would force us all to face the hidden truths we had long avoided. The air was thick with confusion, and I could feel the weight of my family's expectations pressing down on me. What had started as a joyous occasion was now a battlefield, and I was caught in the crossfire of emotions that threatened to tear us apart. As the awkward laughter faded, I knew this was just the beginning, leading us straight into the storm that lay ahead. My first confrontation with my mother loomed on the horizon, and I was not prepared for the chaos to come. The dining room was dimly lit, with the flickering light from the chandelier casting dancing shadows on the walls adorned with family portraits. Each frame held smiles from happier times, a stark contrast to the tension that crackled in the air. The table was set meticulously, but I could feel the invisible barriers between us, like thick glass separating me from the warmth of familial love. My stomach churned as I took my seat, the aroma of roasted chicken mingling with the scent of freshly baked bread, yet the food felt tasteless in my mouth. As we began to eat, the atmosphere grew heavier. Mark, sitting across from me, offered a reassuring smile, but even his presence felt like a fragile thread in a storm. I could sense my mother's eyes darting between me and Laura, her sister, as if measuring the distance between us. Laura's laughter at a joke from my uncle echoed in my ears, but it felt hollow, lacking the joy it was intended to convey. I glanced at my mother, Clara, who was meticulously cutting her food, her hands trembling slightly, revealing her unease. "Isn't this just delightful?" she said, her voice strained, attempting to inject cheer into the gathering. "I'm so glad we could all be together for Kimberly's birthday." The words hung in the air, awkward and forced. I could feel my heart racing, an uncomfortable reminder of the expectations that loomed over me. I wanted to scream, to demand that we address the elephant in the room, the unspoken resentments that simmered beneath the surface. Every bite I took felt like chewing on glass as I navigated the conversation, my mind racing with thoughts of how to bridge the growing chasm between us. I caught snippets of conversation, laughter that felt like daggers, and the clinking of forks that seemed to punctuate the silence. Mark's hand brushed mine under the table, a silent gesture of support, but it did little to quell the storm brewing within me. I found myself lost in memories of family dinners past, where laughter flowed freely and love felt unconditional. Now it was as if we were all actors playing a part in a tragic play, each of us hiding our true emotions behind forced smiles. As dinner progressed, I noticed Laura's gaze fixed on me with a mixture of pity and disdain, and it made my skin crawl. I had always been the one to uphold the family image, but now I felt like an outsider looking in. The walls felt like they were closing in, and I was suffocating under the weight of unexpressed feelings. My breath quickened, and I could feel a bead of sweat trickling down my back as I contemplated the fractures in our family dynamic. I wanted to understand why we could not communicate, why the silence felt more deafening than any argument could. Suddenly, a loud laugh erupted from my uncle, cutting through my thoughts like a knife. It was a reminder of the facade we all wore, and I couldn't help but wonder how much longer we could maintain this pretense. I felt the frustration building inside me, a boiling pot ready to overflow. I needed to voice my concerns, to confront the issues that lay buried beneath layers of denial. But as I looked around the table, I saw only faces that seemed unwilling to engage in honest conversation, and I hesitated, my heart pounding violently in my chest, unsure of how to break the cycle of silence that had become our family's norm. The living room felt like a pressure cooker, the air thick with tension and unresolved issues. I could hear the ticking of the antique clock on the wall, each second echoing my growing anxiety. My mother, Laura, stood across from me, arms crossed defensively, her brows knitted tightly together, a storm brewing in her eyes. I clenched my fists, the texture of the worn fabric of the couch beneath me grounding me as I prepared to confront her. "We need to talk about what happened at dinner," I said, my voice steady yet laced with an underlying tremor of uncertainty. "What is there to talk about? You always twist everything," Laura snapped back, her voice rising like the tension in the room. The walls seemed to close in on us, adorned with family photographs that now felt like ghosts of happier times, mocking the discord that filled the space. I could smell the remnants of the roasted chicken, a dish meant to symbolize family togetherness, but instead it hung in the air like a bitter reminder of our fractured bond. I took a breath, the air felt heavy in my lungs, but I pushed forward. "You know I didn't mean to hurt you, but you can't keep pretending like everything is fine. It's suffocating." I gestured wildly, my frustration boiling over. Laura's eyes narrowed, and I could see her defenses go up even more. The defensiveness in her posture made my heart race, a mix of anger and betrayal coursing through me. Did she really think I wanted to hurt her? Did she even care to understand my feelings? "Suffocating? You think I'm suffocating you? You're the one who's been so distant," she retorted, her voice sharp as a knife. I flinched at her words, the sting of her accusation hitting me hard. The memories of my childhood, filled with laughter and games, clashed violently with the current reality of our relationship. How had we gotten here? It felt as if we were speaking different languages, unable to bridge the chasm that had grown between us. "I'm trying to reach out, but every time I do, you push me away." The desperation in my voice surprised me, a crack in my facade that I couldn't hide. I could feel the heat rising in my cheeks, an embarrassment mingled with anger. I glanced away, focusing on a family portrait hanging nearby, my younger self beaming with joy, standing next to a smiling Laura. Those were the days when love felt unconditional, not like a bargaining chip. "You think you're the only one hurting?" she shot back, her voice softer now but still charged. I could see the flicker of vulnerability in her eyes, a brief crack in her armor. It made my heart ache. I wanted to reach out to tell her how much I understood her pain, but the words felt stuck in my throat. Instead, I felt the need to defend myself, to justify my feelings, and that only fed the fire. "I just want us to be honest with each other," I exclaimed, my voice rising again. Laura's expression hardened, as if my plea was an attack. The silence that followed was deafening, a palpable tension hanging between us. I could hear my heart pounding in my chest, each beat a reminder of the stakes at play. "Why can't you see that your refusal to acknowledge our issues only makes things worse?" I pressed, my breath hitching slightly as I awaited her response. "Because, Kimberly, some things are better left unsaid," she shouted, her face flushed with anger. The outburst felt like a slap, and I recoiled, the sting of her words reverberating through me. I had hoped for a moment of clarity, a breakthrough, but instead we spiraled deeper into conflict. I felt the weight of my words, the truth of my frustrations clashing against her denial, a battle neither of us seemed prepared to lose. As the argument escalated, I could feel the walls closing in tighter, the room echoing with our unresolved issues. Laura's defensive stance was like a wall I couldn't breach, and with each word I felt the distance between us grow. I wanted to scream, to make her understand, but all I could do was watch as the chance for reconciliation slipped further away. The energy in the room shifted, heavy with the realization that this confrontation might not end well, leaving us both more broken than before. My heart sank as I grappled with the painful truth. The failed peace attempts had only escalated the conflict, and now I was left wondering if we could ever find a way back to each other. The kitchen buzzed with a tension that felt almost tangible, the clattering of pots and pans echoing my racing thoughts. The scent of roasting chicken wafted through the air, mingling with the crispness of fresh herbs, but it did nothing to soothe the knot in my stomach. Clara moved about with a practiced efficiency, her back to me as I stood by the sink, washing the same dish over and over, the water splashing against my fingers like an unyielding tide. I could sense her unease, a silent storm brewing just under the surface of her calm facade. I thought about the burden of my earlier words, how they had cut through our fragile peace. My heart raced with the weight of unspoken apologies, and I glanced at Clara, her shoulders tense, the way she gripped the counter hinting at her inner turmoil. The family portraits on the wall, once symbols of our unity, now felt like ghosts of happier times, watching us from the past with disappointment. I longed to bridge the gap, yet fear held me captive, the echoes of my impulsiveness reverberating in my mind. Then, as if sensing my internal struggle, Clara turned to face me. Her eyes, usually warm and inviting, were now clouded with hurt and confusion. "Can you just focus on helping instead of whatever this is?" she snapped, her voice sharp enough to slice through the tension. I flinched at her tone, each word a reminder of the chasm that had widened between us since my ill-timed joke. I wanted to protest, to explain that I was trying, but the words stuck in my throat like a bitter pill. I took a deep breath, my heart pounding as I mustered the courage to respond. Mom, the words faltered, caught in the web of my hesitation. I felt the heat of embarrassment creep up my neck, a reminder of my past mistakes. Clara's brows furrowed, and I could see a flicker of disappointment flash across her face, a reflection of the hurt I had caused. Would she even want to hear my apology, or was it too late for reconciliation? You know, Zoe, sometimes I wonder if you even care about this family anymore, Clara said, her voice dripping with the weight of her unfiltered emotions. The accusation struck me like a physical blow, a reminder of how far we had fallen from the comfortable routine of our lives. My breath hitched in my throat, and I felt a rush of desperation to defend myself. Of course I care, I want to understand why we can't talk about things, I blurted out, frustration bubbling to the surface. The words felt raw and unrefined, yet they were true. I wanted to scream at the walls that had been built between us, to tear them down and rebuild our relationship. Clara's eyes narrowed, a mixture of anger and hurt swirling within them, and for a moment I feared she would turn away again, leaving me stranded in my own emotional storm. But instead there was a pause, a silence filled with unspoken possibilities. I could feel the weight of her gaze, and in that moment I hoped she might see the sincerity behind my plea. Yet just as quickly as it had appeared, the flicker of hope dimmed as I watched her mask of composure slip back into place. She shook her head, a gesture that felt like a final verdict. Sometimes, Zoe, it's easier to pretend everything is fine than to face the truth. Her words pierced through me like shards of glass, leaving me reeling in their wake. I wanted to respond, to push back against the notion that our silence was preferable to confrontation, but the fear of further alienating her held me back. Instead, I felt the desperation clawing at my insides, urging me to find a way to break through her wall. As the tension hung thick in the air, I couldn't shake the feeling that the moment was slipping away. I needed to do something, anything, to reach her before we became irreparably lost. My resolve hardened. This was not just about my feelings anymore. It was about salvaging the remnants of our family, and I had to fight for it, even if it meant facing the uncomfortable truths that lay ahead. As I turned to her, I felt a newfound determination rising within me. I wouldn't let this injustice go unchallenged. I was ready to confront the truth, no matter the cost. The following days were a blur of uncertainty, each moment filled with a desperate hope that things might shift back to normal. I found myself wandering through the house, the silence echoing louder than any words left unspoken. The walls that had once felt like a comforting embrace now seemed to close in around me, suffocating under the weight of my unresolved feelings. I spent hours in the kitchen, chopping vegetables for dinner, my hands busy yet my mind racing with thoughts of how to bridge the chasm that had opened between Clara and me. One evening I decided to reach out. I carefully placed 2 cups of steaming herbal tea on the table, the warmth rising into the air like an offering of peace. Sitting across from Clara, I could see the hint of apprehension in her eyes. I thought maybe we could talk, I ventured, forcing a smile that felt more like a mask than a genuine expression of cheer. The aroma of chamomile was soothing, but the tension between us felt like a storm waiting to break. Clara nodded slowly, her gaze fixed on the tablecloth, avoiding my eyes as if they held too much truth. I took a deep breath, the air thick with the scent of tea and unspoken words. I want to apologize for what happened. I never intended to hurt you. I was just overwhelmed, I stammered, my voice trembling slightly. Clara finally met my gaze, her expression softening but still guarded. Zoe, it's not just about that moment. It's everything that led up to it. We can't just sweep it under the rug and pretend it didn't happen, she replied, her voice steady yet laced with pain. The reality of her words struck me hard, a reminder that our issues were deeper than a single incident. I felt a flicker of frustration igniting within me. I know I want to fix things, but it feels like every time I try, it just gets worse. I don't know what to do, I exclaimed, the words tumbling out in a rush, fueled by a mix of desperation and anger. Clara's eyes widened, and for a moment I saw the glimmer of understanding in her expression. But just as quickly, the moment slipped away, replaced by a familiar distance. The conversation meandered through half-hearted attempts at resolution, each effort dissolving into uncomfortable silence. I could feel my heart sinking as I realized that my attempts at peace were as fragile as the porcelain dishes we used for family dinners. The disappointment settled heavily in my chest, a reminder that rebuilding trust was a daunting task. Days turned into weeks and the tension remained palpable. Each family gathering felt like walking on eggshells, every moment fraught with the unspoken. I tried to initiate small gestures, a shared joke here, a compliment there, but they fell flat, met with stiff smiles and averted gazes. I longed for a sign that we were moving in the right direction, yet it felt like I was pushing against an unyielding wall of resentment. One evening, as I prepared a simple dinner, I could hear Clara's voice drifting in from the living room, laughter mingling with the sounds of a sitcom. A pang of longing shot through me. I wanted to join her, to feel that warmth again, but something held me back. I was tired of reaching out only to be met with silence. The scene ignited a fire within me, I was done waiting for a resolution that might never come. As I set the table, my resolve hardened. I was ready to confront the truth, to lay bare the tangled mess of our relationship. I could no longer tiptoe around the edges of our issues. It was time to face Clara head-on, to demand the honesty we both avoided. I could feel the knot in my stomach tighten as I prepared for what lay ahead, knowing that the next conversation could very well determine the future of our family bonds. The tension was thick, and I could almost taste the bitterness of what had been left unsaid. I had to take a stand, and as I set the last fork down, I knew that I was no longer willing to let fear dictate my actions. It was time to confront Clara, to unearth the truths that had been buried for too long, and to face the possibility of either healing or breaking our fragile ties forever. The atmosphere in the room was electric, thick with the tension of unspoken truths, as the family gathered for what felt like a reckoning. The sunlight streaming through the windows contrasted sharply with the shadows that loomed over us, illuminating the faces of my family, each marked with a mixture of apprehension and defiance. I could hear the distant sound of the wind rustling through the trees outside, a stark reminder of the chaos brewing within our walls. As I stood there, heart pounding in my chest, I felt a wave of determination wash over me. I had to confront the truth, no matter how terrifying it might be. Clara sat across from me, her expression unreadable, but I could sense the walls she had built around her heart, a fortress of hurt and betrayal. I took a deep breath, my palms clammy against the fabric of my dress, and prepared to push through the suffocating silence. "Mom, we can't keep pretending everything is fine. I need you to see how much I regret my words and how deeply I want to fix this." The room fell silent, every eye fixed on us, and I could feel the weight of their expectations pressing down on me. Clara's gaze hardened, and I braced myself for the impact of her response. "You think it's that simple, Zoe? You think a few words can erase what you've done?" Her voice was sharp, slicing through the air like glass, and I felt each word cut deeper than I had anticipated. I swallowed hard, the bitterness of regret filling my throat. Memories flooded my mind, the laughter we once shared, the warmth of her embrace. I couldn't let that slip away. "I know it's not simple, and I don't expect you to forgive me right away, but I want to try. I don't want to lose you, Mom." My voice trembled with urgency, and I could see the flicker of surprise in her eyes, a crack in her defensive armor. As I stood there, I realized that this moment was pivotal. It could either lead to a deeper fracture or a chance for healing. My heart raced as I sought to connect with her, to bridge the chasm that had grown between us. Clara's expression softened ever so slightly, and I could see the struggle within her as she weighed my words against the pain I had caused. Would she allow the possibility of reconciliation? The dim light in my bedroom felt suffocating as I sat on the edge of my bed, the weight of anger simmering just beneath the surface. I could hear the wind howling outside, a reminder of the storm brewing inside me. I had thought that confronting Clara would bring clarity, but instead, it had ignited a fire within me, a desire to reclaim my dignity, to make her understand just how deep the wounds ran. A part of me wrestled with the darkness whispering in my ear, urging me to seek revenge. The thoughts twisted like vines in my mind, and I found myself craving justice for the pain I had endured. Sitting in front of my laptop, I opened a blank document, the cursor blinking expectantly. It felt like I was staring into an abyss of possibilities, each idea more vengeful than the last. I began to jot down plans, ways to make Clara feel the hurt she had inflicted on me. The room was silent, save for the sound of my fingers tapping against the keys, a rhythmic reminder of my determination. My heart raced with every word I typed, and I could almost feel a sense of satisfaction blooming within me. But as I crafted my plans, a flicker of doubt crept in. Was this truly the path I wanted to take? I hesitated, my thoughts drifting to the moments I had shared with Clara, the laughter and warmth that had been overshadowed by our recent turmoil. I could still feel the softness of her hand in mine, the way she had always been there to support me even when I pushed her away. Each memory pulled me back, forcing me to confront the moral implications of my revenge. My phone buzzed beside me, and I glanced at the screen to see a message from Sarah. "Are you okay?" I took a deep breath, the tension in my shoulders easing slightly. I knew I needed to talk to someone about the chaos in my mind. I typed back quickly, inviting her over. Maybe she could help me navigate this storm brewing within. I wanted to seek justice, but at what cost? The thought lingered, heavy and unresolved, as I prepared to confront not just Clara, but the darker parts of myself that threatened to take control. The atmosphere in the living room was thick with tension, a charged silence that buzzed in the air like electricity before a storm. I stood facing Clara, the sunlight streaming through the window casting long shadows that danced around us, highlighting the distance that felt insurmountable. My heart pounded in my chest, a relentless drumbeat urging me to speak, to confront the hurt that had festered between us. I could sense her apprehension, her eyes flickering with uncertainty, mirroring the turmoil swirling inside me. "We need to talk, Mom," I said finally, my voice steady despite the churning in my stomach. Clara's brow furrowed, and I could see her bracing for what was to come. The air was thick with unspoken words, and I felt the weight of every moment that had led us here pressing down on my shoulders. I took a deep breath, summoning every ounce of courage I had. I can't keep pretending everything is okay when it's not. Your dismissal of my feelings, it hurt me deeply. Her reaction was immediate, a flicker of anger flashing in her eyes. You think you can just lay this all on me? She shot back, her voice rising. I could taste the bitterness in the air, a sharp contrast to the sweet memories I clung to. You've always made it about your feelings, Zoe. What about mine? The accusation struck me like a physical blow, and I felt my resolve waver, but I pressed on. I know I messed up, and I'm sorry for what I said, but you need to understand how your reactions affect me. I'm not trying to hurt you, I just want to be heard. My voice cracked slightly, the intensity of the moment washing over me. Clara's expression shifted, the anger slowly giving way to something softer, more vulnerable. I've been trying to protect our family image, to keep things from falling apart, she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper now. I could see the walls she had built around herself begin to crumble, and in that moment I realized how deeply she had been hurting too. The revelation felt like a crack in the dam, allowing the flood of emotions to spill forth. I took a step closer, the distance between us shrinking. We can't heal if we keep hiding from each other. I love you and I want to work through this together, I pleaded, my heart aching for her acceptance. Clara hesitated, her facade crumbling under the weight of our shared pain. As she looked into my eyes, I could see the turmoil of emotions swirling within her. The silence hung heavy, filled with the unspoken truths we had both tried to avoid. Finally, she nodded, a small gesture that felt monumental in its significance. Okay, Zoe, let's try, but it's going to take time. The words felt like a lifeline thrown into turbulent waters, and I grasped it tightly, feeling a glimmer of hope begin to blossom amidst the chaos of our emotions. The aftermath of our confrontation lingered in the air like the fading scent of burnt candles, a reminder of the turmoil that had erupted within our family. I found myself standing in the living room, the once vibrant decorations now felt dull and lifeless, echoing the somber mood that enveloped us. Clara's eyes were red-rimmed, reflecting the emotional toll of our earlier discussion, and I could feel the weight of unspoken words still hanging between us. As my family began to trickle in, the atmosphere shifted slightly. There was a hesitance in their movements, a cautious dance around the remnants of our heated exchange. I caught Mark's gaze across the room. He offered me a small, encouraging smile, a silent reminder that I was not alone in this. The clinking of glasses and the soft murmur of voices filled the space, yet I felt as if we were all on different planets, orbiting around the same painful truth. I took a deep breath, my heart heavy yet hopeful, as I approached Clara, who was now seated on the couch, her hands resting in her lap. Can we talk again? I asked, my voice steady but soft, filled with a mix of vulnerability and resolve. She nodded slowly, her expression a mixture of apprehension and willingness. This was our chance to bridge the gap that had widened so painfully between us. As we began to speak, the conversation took on a different tone. We shared our fears and regrets, each word a step toward healing. I could see Clara's walls slowly crumbling as she opened up about her own experiences, the weight of her expectations and the fear of losing me. It was as if the air around us began to shift, allowing space for understanding and compassion. By the end of our talk, I felt a flicker of hope igniting within me. We had not resolved everything, but we had taken a significant step toward reconciliation. The lingering pain of betrayal felt less suffocating, replaced by a shared commitment to rebuild our relationship. As we embraced, I could feel the warmth of her love wrapping around me, a promise that we would face the future together, one step at a time. In that moment, I realized that the journey toward healing would be long and fraught with challenges, but I was ready to walk it alongside Clara. Our bond, once fractured, was beginning to mend, and I knew that together we could navigate the complexities of our emotions, transforming our sorrow into a foundation for a stronger connection. The evening sun cast a warm glow through the kitchen window, illuminating the remnants of our family dinner. The laughter and chatter that once filled the room had faded, leaving behind a comforting silence that felt almost sacred. I sat at the table, my fingers tracing the patterns on the tablecloth, reflecting on how far we had come. Clara's smile had returned, and the warmth of her presence wrapped around me like a soft blanket, easing the tension that had once threatened to consume us. Memories of our shared moments began to flood my mind, the laughter, the tears, and the unspoken promises we had made to each other. I could still hear her voice quivering with vulnerability as we opened up, each confession a thread weaving us closer together. The echoes of our past mistakes lingered, but they no longer felt like chains. Instead, they were reminders of the strength we had found in honesty and understanding. As I glanced around the room, I noticed the family portraits on the wall, each image a testament to our journey. They told stories of joy and heartbreak, of love and reconciliation. I felt a swell of gratitude for the chance to mend what had been broken, realizing that the path to healing was not just about facing the pain, but also about embracing the love that remained. It was a delicate balance, and I was ready to nurture it. In that moment, I understood that our journey was far from over. There would be challenges ahead, but we would face them together, armed with the lessons we had learned. With a determined heart, I knew this was the beginning of a new chapter, one where we would cherish our bond and grow stronger as a family. I took a deep breath, ready to embrace whatever came next. Subscribe to the channel and activate the bell.